Hello to anyone that's listening. I'm just having a drink. Sorry, you just pressed record a bit too quick. Hello. How is everyone today? I hope you're all well. Oh, sorry, that was me moving the chair. Just trying to get in position. Hi, Amanda, with the wavy hands. I've got something to think about staring at me through a door crack at the
Hello,
moment.
everybody.
He's been banished. He
won't let me on the lives no more.
Yeah, he's had his lunch now, so he has to get back to work. So, hi everybody. As usual, if you ask questions, I'll try my best to answer them. And I'm going to start talking about stuff. Otherwise, just feel free to ask the questions. So I'm just going to waffle on. So I was going back through the book of Enoch, and something that I came across that I didn't sort of pick up first time reading it many moons ago was the fact that Enoch talks about parting water again. So we know Noah. Was it Noah? Sorry, not Noah. I'm trying to remember the movie now. Where Moses? That is it. We know the story of Moses, where he was leading the Israelites, I think, to safety, and the waters parted. Now, the Book of Enoch talks about, all right, not a great ocean, but it talks about a stream being parted so that someone can cross. And I thought that was really interesting. So that's not the same text. It's a different place. In other words, it wasn't a one-off. So you then think, okay, well, Enki is supposedly the god of water. So has he managed to manipulate water? Which makes a really interesting question, because can we do that now? So I started to Google, although Google's probably not the best place these days to search. DuckDuckGo is. But I tried to see if anyone else has managed to manipulate water in that fashion where they can actually sort of move it to one side. I couldn't find anything, but that's not to say it can't be done. I was trying to work out how it would possibly be done. But if they've got the technology to levitate stones, they could probably use the same technology, I would have thought, in some fashion to create a sort of a beam of energy that could possibly part water. The water in Majorca. So if that's the case, then the text where Moses crossed, then that could be real, and which obviously a lot of people use that as, how the hell could he do that? But if the technology's there, then yeah, possibly. So I found that really interesting. So sorry, that was something that. So like I say, if you want to ask any questions, feel free to do so. Otherwise, I will just continue waffling on about various bits and pieces. So yeah, the book of I'm mainly at the moment talking about the book of Enoch only because it's fresh in my mind. So if you've got any questions about anything else, do ask. So you've probably seen the pictures I've been putting up on my videos of the main people at the moment. I've done Anu, which was Kronos. Do you know there's not, I doubt if there's many people that can grasp the fact that the Anunnaki names are one of the same. I know Neptune and Poseidon. I mean, if you look at the pictures of them or the statues, I mean, both of them are holding a scepter or I can't remember what was it called, trident. Both of them are holding a trident. Both of them look exactly the same as each other, just in different countries. So once people get their heads around the fact that these Anunnaki could live a lot longer than we could, was seen as immortal, and obviously travelled. Now, the lady that I just talked about, which was a sister that had relationships with her brother, they're very inbred, and that's how the pharaohs ended up doing what they did as well. But I'll cover that at a later date. But so I'm going to pronounce her name wrong and get told off. Nishkarag, the sister basically of Enki and Enlil. I've now forgot where I was going with that point. Sorry, I do digress, don't I? But let me try to think where I was now. What was I talking about? Nishka. Yeah, but okay. Well, I'll just waffle on about that then. So yeah, so if you listen to Zachariah Sitchin's granddaughter, I think it is, she claims that they used her womb. Now, going back to the Book of Enoch, I think they're right. I think reading it now the way you can interpret it. I think yes, they did use her womb, still artificially inseminated from the indigenous species on Earth at the time, and then she gave birth to obviously Homo sapiens. Now, how many times that happened, I don't know. It's possible that they did that a few times and obviously failed many a time, I'm sure. But with their longevity of their life compared to ours, it probably was just a blink of an eye to them, so it wasn't too much of a problem. And I do think she was a bit of a character, obviously, allowing her brother and her to do things and then have a child with them. So she seems the type that would have allowed to be a surrogate mother. Now, so Enlil wasn't a huge fan of his sister, from what I can gather, and of his other brother. So Enlil was classed as a commander, and so he was the in charge of the military, so to speak, whereas Enki was the scientist, and his sister was classed as a goddess, and she did various roles. She wasn't useless, but it's Enlil who was the antagonist in the story, the bad guy. And as we know, well, as we believe, eventually there became that war, which I haven't really touched on yet. In fact, I don't even think I've touched on it at all, with and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, the Aigigi. Yes, it's Iggiggi or something like that, the Aigigi, which I haven't really touched on, but they, when I get to that point, you'll hopefully understand. So they were Anunnaki, but the youngers, so they're younger Anunnaki, from what I understand, and they were treated, shall we say, like workers, and they, at one point, they didn't like that, and they wanted to try and overthrow Anu and the older Anunnaki, such as Enlil. Didn't quite go to plan. It was a big battle, apparently, space battle, between them, because the youngers were obviously in charge of mining ships and things like that was taking the ore backwards and forwards. So they had their own ships that they were flying around in. But they lost the war. Now, good old Anu, the king, didn't punish them too badly. He could have, apparently, but he didn't. So they sort of got a slap on the wrist and said, "Don't you do that again," which is really nice of him, because I'm sure if Enlil was in charge, king, then he would have probably killed them, because he was the person that wanted us dead as humans. So obviously the flood came because of, the real story is the flood came because of the non-pure bloods, which, funny enough, there's people calling people nowadays pure bloods and not pure bloods because of the vaccines. But the flood came because of the Nephilim, which was the offspring of Anunnaki having relationships with human women. Now, that is how they could do that, because if you go back to what I was talking about, Nishkara, whatever her name was, her DNA is mixed in with Adam and Eve's, and therefore when the Anunnaki had relationships with Adam and Eve's descendants, they could propagate, pronounce that wrong, but and that caused some sort of issues, and that's where the giants came from, the Nephilim. Just trying to recap where I was. So the flooding was because the pure bloods were tainted, and so they were called the fallen angels. So Anu, with thanks to Enlil, who really wanted us wiped out, allowed the flood to happen in order, whereas Enki was the one trying to help and suggesting to Enoch and Noah to survive and how to survive and things like that. But Enlil was also the one that turned around and said he hated humans, and while he sleeps, now bearing in mind his sleep was probably 6 months instead of 1 day for us. I don't know how long, but it was a very long time. It wasn't 1 day. He would sleep for a long time because obviously his lifespan was different to ours. So he, in the book of Enoch, he says that he wanted man to be destroyed, or humans to be destroyed, because they were making too much noise while he sleeps. Now that goes back to the old Tower of Babel as well, with the too much noise. So it's very interesting stuff, our real true history. So don't forget, if you've got any questions at all, you don't have to listen to me waffling on. Anything to do with anything, I'll try my best to answer it. Otherwise, I just waffle on. I'm just going to take a drink, so talk amongst yourselves 1 sec. Okay, so I'll carry on then. So what's interesting is the Book of Enoch also talks about them using swords. And if you've seen my latest videos, you see that I showed a picture of swords. And I'm, for example, sorry, someone's just asked a question. Unlimited, so you say there is no God. So the Anunnaki were the gods that we wrote about, the gods that's in the Bible. Their actual race name is Elohim, and that's written not in the Bible. Well, it is in the Bible, but it doesn't explain it. It's written in the Book of Enoch. So you need to read the Book of Enoch and understand that Elohim is just a race name. So if we went to another planet, if you and me went to another planet and we said, hi, we're humans, my name is Fred and your name is George, that species on that planet would look at us humans, and because we're more technically advanced than them, would think we're gods. So they would call us humans, and over time humans would be the name that they associate with heavenly beings that can do magic, and that's all the Anunnaki were. They were just species that were more advanced than us at the time. So we looked up to them, and they obviously wanted us to look up to them. They actually wanted us to worship them. It's written over and over. So it's not just a one-off. But when talking about God, there could be a creator of some sort. I've mentioned many times that the aliens, the little greys, say that there is either a source or creation, one or the other, which it could be just as simple as a thought, like the Matrix, just suddenly something came into existence. I don't know the answer to that, but basically aliens do think that there's something else more than just what there is now. So, but for the gods, or the Elohim or whatever, it's as clear as the nose on my face that the writings are there, the statues are there of them. What more do we need? It literally points exactly, and it tells you that they come from another place. They draw the star maps on walls in Samaria. So although religion has its place, if that helps people, great, but really it was just these guys, and the facts are actually there. They're really there, but if you just don't look at them, then you'll want to believe whatever you want to believe. But if you look at the facts, there are these characters, stone carvings of them, writings on various different things, right from the Epic of Gilgamesh to cuneiform tablets to the Dead Sea Scrolls to writings on papyrus. All these things talk about the Anunnaki, but the Book of Enoch, which is probably the best one to go through from finding out a little bit about them. Obviously you've got other books out there that you can read now from people like Sitchin. The facts are there. Right, sorry, someone's asked a question. Paul has wrote, or Paulette, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, Pauletted. I'm Christian, but I'm having trouble understanding how God could sit by and watch evil done. So, very good question. So Anunnaki God, if we call them, if you prescribe to the fact that the Anunnaki were here. There's enough evidence of that for sure. With the temples and everything else, and the books that match up. When I say books, we turned them into a book. So basically, it's not books; it's writings, but we converted it into a book. Like I did one of the videos just yesterday, or whatever it was, about Enlil having his temple, which in Nepal, which is in Mesopotamia. That was in the book of Enoch. So the facts are there. That temple didn't get made for fun. It got made for a god, and that god was Enlil, so physical being. So going back to the question about the evil, so Anu, if you go along the lines of the Anunnaki, Anu wasn't evil, which is good. Enlil, I think, probably had an evil streak in him, but the king, who only came to Earth a couple of times in the writings that I've read, but obviously when he comes for a couple of times, he could be staying for 1,000 years, because their time difference to us was huge. So he was a good king, a fairly righteous king. He didn't like people not worshipping him. But he didn't strike them down for it. So that's that god. Now, if you go to the other god, where it's all knowing, all seeing, and apparently created the earth in 6 days, but got tired and needed a rest. See, that always gets me. That's why the Book of Enoch works. So the Book of Enoch says 6 days. The first 6 days they catalogue, when they arrived on Earth, they catalogue things like the earth, the water, the ground, the animals and the trees and so on. And on the 7th day they rested, which makes perfect sense, because you only rest if you're gonna do something again the following day. So whereas the Almighty God rested on the 7th day, that doesn't make sense, because he's finished. He's not resting. He stopped. To rest, you would then carry on. So that's why it makes more sense, the Sumerian story or the Anunnaki story, than having a almighty being that needed a rest. But he didn't rest, he stopped. Anyway, that's just me waffling on. But if you go along the lines of that there's an almighty being that allows the evil, then you have to go to the Spirit Lord, which again the Anunnaki do talk about. So if you go to the spirit side, there is no right or wrong, which is really sad. We see things as right and wrong. So if you die, so basically, I don't know how much you've sort of followed my videos, but basically there's an entity out there. It's a light being entity, which is what joins with us 3 to 4 months while we're pregnant, while we're in the womb. And that light being stays with us, and then when we die, it leaves. Sometimes it leaves early, near-death experiences, for example, or it thinks you're about to die, and then a different spirit goes into you. I'm calling them spirits, but they're just entities. And that's how you can end up playing piano from a previous person's experiences when you couldn't play it before. But so those light beings, which are really the spirits, the Anunnaki talked about them. We've been talking about them for years as ghosts and spirits and all sorts of things. Those entities, which are part of the Council of Aliens, there's probably a name for them, but I'm calling them the Council of Aliens, which are the ones that decide what you, as a spirit, who you want to join with. So before you're born, they say, okay, you're going to go to this family, and you're going to probably, find hardship, and you might be disabled, or you might get killed when you're 16. And that spirit says, yeah, great, lovely, fine, just do it. So it's, to them, it's a learning experience. So the spirit could be a murderer, could be the nicest person in the world. Doesn't matter. It's they go back round. The spirit, once you die, they'll go around, and they'll go with a different family or whatever else. So to them, there is no evil. It's just learning, which is really sad, because I would love there to be, a spirit that sort of says, hang on a minute, that's not right. But to them, it's just learning. There's no right or wrong. So we see it as evil. But they don't, I'm afraid. So if there's an almighty being, above the spirits, then maybe that's just as simple as that. Maybe they don't see right and wrong. They just learn from it. Sonoff Dirt has wrote, God's just waiting. It's written. See, that's where I have a problem with, because people say things like that, and I don't mean to sound flippant at all. I really don't. But they probably said that 100 years ago. They probably said that during the war when people were dying. They probably said that, in Genghis Khan's time when people were getting killed. How far back does it go when people were still waiting? And they're going to be saying it in 100 years' time from now. God will come back. But there's never been any sign from an almighty being helping us, ever. I mean, you can say the Bible, but again, go back to the Bible, and the Bible is a retelling. It is a retelling of the Book of Enoch, and some other bits and pieces that's out there, and they all predate the Bible. So there isn't, I know people's going to say, oh, but I believe in God. That's fine, but don't expect him to help you. He's not, he or she or it or whatever has never done it for anyone else. All the poor people in concentration camps. People in 9/11 never got help, and it won't happen because there's probably not an almighty being that's watching over us, and if there is, they're not going to help us because they would have done it a long time ago. So that's just my take on it. I might be wrong, but I can't see. Someone's wrote something to think about. Please help, guys. He keeps me locked in a cage and won't let me stream anymore. That's not true. He's been busy doing other things, and he's shut up. Get back in your room. Paulette's wrote finger heart ×1. Not sure what that means, but thank you. I'm guessing it's a nice thing. Hopefully, it's a nice thing. Outside Watchers wrote giant vivid eyes blue and a blue face vivid. Not sure what that means. Sorry, I'm not sure if that's referring to the Anunnaki. Sorry, sometimes I waffle on, and then by the time I get to people's messages, I'm trying to figure out what they were referring to, so I apologise for that. Do you know who translated the Book of Enoch? Very good question. So, the Book of Enoch isn't just one book. It's a series of writings in various different forms, from Sumerian, Aramaic, Hebrew, and so on. So, it's a huge library of information, and unfortunately, the information that we wanted about the flood was destroyed for whatever reason. So the parts of the tablets were destroyed, and that's really a shame, because we could have learnt so much about what went on properly there. But who actually? So it goes back a long time ago. And the beauty is the fact that these are different writings in different languages as time moved on is what helped the people translate it. Because if it was just, for example, in cuneiform, then they probably wouldn't have been able to translate that. But because other languages spoke about the same things, it became sort of like a Rosetta Stone. It wasn't, but it became like that. So luckily, people such as Zecharia Sitchin, so the last count, there was about 200 people that could actually read the whole of those tablets in the world, 200 people. So, if one of them's lying, they would all kind of have to lie, because they all kind of agree with the same thing. There was one that was trying to debunk Zecharia Sitchin, because he says that the Anunnakis means those from heaven who came to earth. Something very similar to that. Those from heaven came to earth. In other words, from space. Now that obviously isn't a name as a race, because you wouldn't call yourself those who heaven came from, because you wouldn't have even arrived there. We're humans. We've not gone to other planets yet, so we wouldn't call ourselves those that came from Earth to your planet. So Anunnaki is just a name that was given because they were trying to describe the people, not an actual race name. As we know, the race name is Elohim, and it's written many a times about them. So this guy tried to discredit Zachariah Sitchin by saying, no, the word Anunnaki means princely seeds or princely blood. And he's saying, he's trying to discredit the whole Anunnaki thing. And I wrote to this guy and I said, look, you do realise that you've actually just confirmed Enlil and Enki. I said, you've literally just said that the word Anunnaki means princely seeds. So even if Zachariah Sitchin's got those from heaven who came to earth wrong, and you're right, and it says princely seeds, then you're still agreeing with him the fact that these princes, Enlil and Enki, came to earth. And he wrote back, I can't remember too much of what he wrote. He tried to get around it by saying loads of stuff, but basically I had him on the ropes, and he gave. I wrote back to him saying that what you said, and I pointed out all his incorrections, and he never got back to me. But it goes to show, he was literally trying to debunk him, because I went to his website and literally everything was Zachariah Sitchin's got it wrong, blah blah blah. But when you point out so sometimes these people are disinformation as well. So talking about who translated the Book of Enoch, some people are disinformation. Now people say that Zachariah Sitchin was part of the Masons, Freemasons, but if he was, a couple of things. One is, if he was and wasn't allowed to do his research, they wouldn't have let him do his research. They wouldn't have put it out there. Two, if he was trying to deceive us, it goes back to the logic thing. I wouldn't, if I was doing, if I was in a cult that didn't want anyone to know about what's happened in our past, I certainly wouldn't write about it to try and debunk it. I would just ignore it. So it's possible that he was in the Freemasons, and some of them actually wanted the information out there. So there are others. There are other people that's read the book. When I say read the book, read all the texts, and I totally agree with Zachariah Sitchin. So some words might be slightly different. It is up to interpretation of your own life skills. Where I would, I've said this before, where I would say sort of green grass, someone else might say grass green. So it's as simple as that. But there are people out there that can read it. So Sonoff wrote, explain space and the firmament, please. So, okay, I'll try and be brief because I have mentioned it a couple of times, but I'm still trying to get my head around this flat Earth. I am trying to watch as much as I can, but every time I watch the few clips I've seen of things, it sort of, they've come up with some good points, but just because you can come up with something to fit what you want doesn't make it right. That's what I struggle with. There was a video on TikTok where a guy had a plate and it was concaved, and he was turning it, showing the camera and saying, look. And I wrote on there, just because you can do that and make it look like, half moon, quarter moon, with the shape of it, doesn't mean it's how it is. Just because you can recreate something doesn't mean it's how it is. And the amount of people that actually agreed with me, and liked that comment. So I'm still struggling with the whole firmament thing. So from what I understand, there's this sort of impenetrable dome over us, which I find hard to believe, for the first reason that there is nothing else on this planet that has that ability to be see-through, but yet that solid. So that's the first problem I've got. The second problem is when you read the actual original texts about the firmament, literally they say that they come across something hard and it was hard to get through, which, I'm being basic here, but that's pretty much what it said. Now, they were using rocket ships, not anti-gravity. Anti-gravity can fly through our atmosphere, no problem at all. So I'm suggesting that they hit our atmosphere, because their atmosphere, as we know from the texts, was dwindling. That's exactly how it's described. Their atmosphere was dwindling. Sorry about that. So if their atmosphere was dwindling, then they could probably leave their atmosphere quite easily without burning up. But of course, when they come to Earth, they would burn up. And that, I think, is simply what it was written. And then, of course, people then jumped on that and said, oh, it's solid. It's a dome. It's a flat Earth. And then just went on and on and on and added all these things to it. I might be wrong, but that's my take on it. So, I've even asked the question to some flat Earthers. I said, look, Elon Musk is sending up these rockets for the fun of it, costing billions because there's a dome above us. And then they wrote, no, there's some sort of thing in between and stuff like that. And it's just, they're just trying to find the answers instead of just saying, okay, yes, we know NASA lies. We know they've probably done spacewalks and stuff, CGI now. We totally know they lie, but it doesn't mean that we're not on a sphere. Because looking at the stars that are now apparently inside the dome, because I said to someone, how come they just said, oh, they're all discs? And I said, what other planets are facing us, all facing us, instead of being on the edge of a disc, instead of seeing the back end of it. So there's just too many holes for me at the moment on the flat Earth stroke dome. So I think there is space out there for NASA, because I spoke to someone talking about flat Earth, and I said, so there's no such thing as space? And he goes, well, NASA made it up. And I was like, so 50, 60, 80 years ago, 90 years, whenever it was that NASA first come up with the idea that there's space, they decided to make it so difficult for themselves that they wanted things to float around. That's just illogical, because back then they didn't have the technology that we've got now. So for them to say that it's, there's no gravity, and then have to manipulate and have on wires these pens just to fool us, I think that was just, see what I mean? It's just, they just seem to add these things just to try and suit. So until someone really comes up, yes, I know they're talking about, you can't see the curvature of the Earth. I know about camera lenses. I won't bore you, but yeah, so I'm not even going to entertain the curvature of the Earth. So that's my take on it. I just think the firmament is just literally what it said in the Book of Enoch, which was a tough thing to get through with their rocket ships, which is our atmosphere. So Unlimited Pack says, so you're saying that after we die, we come back? Yes. So there's a limited number of souls or spirits or light beings, whatever you want to call them. There's a limited number from what I understand. And we're overpopulated, and they want this. The light beings want to sort of join with as many people as they can, which they can at the moment. But we're overpopulated, which means there's people out there with no souls, no spirits. So what happens anyway? So what happens when you die? This is what I've learned from numerous conversations with all sorts of people, clairvoyants and all sorts of things. You die. Your spirit leaves you. That spirit's got your personality and everything. So effectively, it's a carbon copy of you at that moment in time. While you're there on the other side, you have feelings, and you can be sad that you've harmed yourself, or to get there, or you're sad that for whatever reason you have sadness. So it's not all love and peace. So don't, this is why I don't like the idea of people committing suicide, because they think they're going to get away with it, but they don't. They have regrets, and I've heard many stories about people committing suicide and regretting it. And the problem there, the other side, you can see everything. You can see the past, present, and future. So you can see your family dying and everything, which is really scary. But once you're on the other side, you then have a choice. Now, I'm not 100% sure how it actually works, whether you want to or whether you're allowed to. But basically, there's a choice that you stay where you are for now. So in other words, you're floating around. And I think that's from conversations that I've had with clairvoyants, while and this goes back to an old story. When I was a kid, I heard this. So while you're thought of, you're still around. So in other words, if you're thinking of your parents, if something happened to them, or your grandparents, they're still around. They can't leave, and this is what really was sad when I heard that clairvoyant talking to Marilyn Monroe, and she said, "I can't go, I can't leave. While people are still thinking of me, I can't leave." And that's really sad. So anyway, once you cross over, you're obviously dead. You're on the other side, but then you can cross over again because there's different planes of existence. Now, once you cross over again, that's when I think you lose. That's it. Your personality goes. The spirit, the energy force, whatever it is, the alien, whatever you want to call it, goes back in control. But it still retains a lot of your memories. So now it's on the other side. It goes in front of the council of aliens again, and they say, "Hey, listen, we've got this really great family, and your soul group's going to be there." If you want to know about the soul group, just ask me. I'll waffle on about that. But so you then go back and be reincarnated, or that spirit, not you really anymore. That spirit gets reincarnated into another person, and joins with them again. Just as the Quran says, 3 to 4 months. So the Quran again, everything's taken from the old ancient texts. And then if you're hypnotized, for example, you can go back into that energy that's with you, alien entity, and recall some of your past lives, and that's as simple as that, really. So I try and liken it to a hard drive on a computer. So at the moment, you are a computer, for example, and you've got two types of memory on there. You've got the RAM, and then you've got a hard drive. So when you switch your computer off, the RAM, although it was remembering everything you was doing at that point, once you turn the computer off, it's gone. But the hard drive has copies of everything that you was doing. And that's pretty much what that's why I try and describe it. So you die, your memory's gone, but the hard drive is still available. And then it gets wiped once you cross over the second time. Paletas, this question is off topic, but I have those orbs in my yard, dozens of them at night. You can't see them. So do you see them with like a night vision camera? Because generally you can, from what I understand, you can only see the real orbs either out of the corner of your eye, or using sort of night vision cameras or security cameras, things like that. So if you've got, because you have to be careful because there's dust particles do look like orbs, so you just have to kind of suss it out and see whether or not it's a real orb. Look at other people's videos of orbs, real orbs, and you'll see. I mean, I did a video on an orb splitting into two, and that's definitely an orb. You can tell that's an orb as opposed to dust flying around. So, but it'd be interesting to see if you can try and catch any of that footage. People would love to see, if you can, in your garden, of orbs. I've seen videos, where an orb goes through a church window and carries on and goes out of the wall. It's quite amazing. So we know that's not dust when it does that. So Sonoff does explain why they worship the devil. Then Luciferians are real. It's just evil. Now they do, in the book of Enoch, they do talk about serpent as an evil thing. So basically people use that name, this is my opinion, they use that name to be able to, it's no different from Christians, Jews, whatever. They're just using that name to get people to join them, and then they worship that thing, whether or not it's real. I just think it's as what we do now. We'll worship something, and it doesn't, just because that one's evil doesn't make it any less right to them compared to all the other religions out there. So they use it to their own advantage, and if people join in and believe all that, then that's exactly their end game. So obviously there's a lot of good ones out there. You talk about, we'll even throw in Scientology there. They're all talking about their things, trying to get people to join them. But why not have an evil one I'm just saying, I'm obviously not for it, but the logic would be, hang on a minute, there's like 500 religions out there. Why not? They're all talking about praise. Let's have one that's, where we can kill people. Yeah, that's a good one. So the logic is there that someone would create one of those type of religions. That's just the way I take it. There's sick people out there doing sick things, and then they call it in the name of that. And I mean, if you go to the Vatican, their telescopes. I'll let you Google what their telescope's called. You probably know already, and it's not a it's a name that shouldn't be associated with the Vatican. So NV3 has wrote, "That's the truth. I'm so far behind on these messages, so I'm sorry. I thank you if that's what I'm talking about." Pauletta's wrote, "I'm not crazy. Got pictures of obviously the orbs. Plus fairies should be scared. If you've got pictures of fairies, I'd love to see the pictures of fairies. I do believe that there was people seeing fairies. There's just too many stories. People all over the world, same as gnomes and things like that, little leprechauns. They were all over the world, and I actually think they come through from a different dimension through a different portal." Which would explain how they disappear and stuff like that. So yeah, I'd be interested to see any kind of fairy pictures you have. Finger heart. Still don't know what that means, but I'm praying it's a nice thing. Thank you. Why do I believe I'm just reliving over again, play by play? I'm guessing you're referring to your life, that you feel like you're reliving it. That could be one of two things. One is the spirit with you has done very similar before. I mentioned on one of these other live chats about this mass murderer that was hypnotized by, he allowed himself to be hypnotized and regressed. And all his previous lives, he was a murderer, which clearly means that spirit or entity was going through a phase of what's it like to be a murderer. So with you, it could be one of two things. From my guessing here off the top of my head, one is whatever you're doing now was very similar to what you've done before, or the old different timeline Mandela type effect, where there's another reality out there that's run parallel, and using the quantum entanglement, if you believe in all that, you are getting the same feelings as you would knowing that that's already happened, always happening at the same time, sort of deja vu. I'm not an expert on that, but that's just me throwing my 2p's worth. Right, okay, so Ultimate Pack has wrote, "If the book you're talking about was so important, why was it not in the Bible?" Excellent question, and it was. It was actually the original Bible. It really was the original Bible. Ethiopia still uses it as the original Bible. So if you look at the Book of Enoch and then go through all the other variations of the Bible thereafter, you'll see bits taken out over and over. They keep taking different bits of the Book of Enoch out of the Bible, and eventually I think the last Bible only mentions Enoch once now, whereas the first Bible mentions Enoch a lot, and they just take it out, and it's taken out because all the people that write the Bible are in control, and they don't want us to know our history. So it's fairly simple, really, when you work it out like that. And as I say, these texts, I saw just the other day someone saying on a video, I can't remember what it was, but they was trying to say that these texts were fake. These Dead Sea Scrolls and things were all fake. I'm like, oh my God, who would have learnt their language, stuck them in a cave? This is where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, in these ancient vases. The vases alone would have been worth a lot of money. So for them to just roll these scrolls up, stick them in these vases that are ancient, hide him in a cave. Hope whoever finds it doesn't actually. Oh, just I hate thick people. The logic there that they would fake it and hope that someone finds it, and not only finds it, then reports it, then someone translates it, then so it's not fake. So yeah, that's why it's not in the Bible, because it was the Bible. It actually genuinely was the original Bible, which makes sense because it's got everything that the Bible's eventually copied from it, and then over time took bits off of it. So T. Clint wrote a very good question there. Back to the person that asked why it wasn't in the Bible. He or she wrote, what makes you think the Bible is the real version? So that basically is what I'm saying. Yeah, so that's a very good question there. It's a good one. Sonoff, so you think we went to the moon? Not the first time, certainly not. I think we've been there in anti-gravity machines for sure, definitely. Yeah, we're there working with as people laugh at me, but we're working there with the original Nazis that went there. They were there first, on the far side of the moon, mining. There's people there, and there's a lot of people out there that spoke about this. They've worked on is it Luna? I can't remember the name of it. Luna something missions or something. But for the Apollo missions, the first one, no, I think that was just fake. Down the line, did they manage to send up one? There's a couple of stories where they seem to say that they did send up one where they had an extra astronaut on board hidden that went into one of these cigar, very long shape, like the Ouma, hopefully I pronounced that right this time, meteorite or whatever you want to call it, asteroid, that came past Earth a couple of years back, and that actually had a trajectory as well, so it wasn't just a asteroid, it was actually a ship, ancient one, that's just derelict. So apparently our Space Force went up there and hunted through it, but it was already derelict. But anyway, so supposedly there is that a very long. So that what they do is they cut, instead of building a spaceship the way we build spaceships with metal, they dig into a rock, into a planet, and pull out a whole chunk of rock, miles long, and then they dig one hole into it and then hollow it out, so there's no seams. So we want things to look nice, and we want to sell metals and all this kind of stuff. But these use logic, instead of having all these seams that could, leak, they just get one huge lump of rock. Obviously we can't do that at the moment, but that's what they do, and then they hollowed it out and made it a spaceship, which is a genius idea. And supposedly there's one on the moon, an ancient one, and so if there was a mission to the moon for that reason, then that one I would probably say actually happened for them to look into it. I did a video on what they found on that on one of my other videos, so if you're interested in finding about that woman that they found on that ship, please go and have a look. 12 Chick Nugs wrote, if you had to put your money on why the pyramids were created, what would you say they're for? So the Great Pyramid has power coming from it, so it was a power source, and it still has power to this day coming out of it. So it was there's some great videos out there and some great books on how and why the pyramid was built for power. And it was basically, Tesla did the same sort of thing, Nikola Tesla, and it would spread out the energy for great distances. So the Great Pyramid was for that, but other pyramids were for different reasons. So, for example, I keep using this one, but I like this one because I keep finding more and more research these days, and it's corroborating my actual theory on what it was. So there's one in, I think it was Mexico, and underneath it had mercury, which I then Googled and searched what mercury could be used for, and it was actually mining gold. So you can actually take ore, rock, and it would somehow take the minerals out of it. So I think pyramids were used for different things. There certainly weren't tombs. Absolutely not tombs. Tombs. There are tombs. We all know what a tomb looks like, but these were not tombs. There was no bodies ever found in a pyramid, so they're not for pyramids. Not tombs. Sorry, I'm just trying to read the next question. Ultimate Pack wrote, I believe not in my heart. And then, sorry, you wrote that twice. Sorry. Read Von Braun's Centre Tombstone, please. Okay, so for people that don't know, Von Braun, if I'm not mistaken, was one of the smart guys over in Germany during the war that was... sorry, someone's knocking on the door. That was creating these rocket ships, and then eventually he came over to the United States, under Project Paperclip, and started to work in a newly formed company called NASA. So Sonoff is saying, read Von Braun's Centre Tombstone, please. I will. I've not heard of that, but that goes for other people if you're interested in that. Just scrolling down now. Sorry, I'm trying to get to the messages. Your opinion on this being some sort of simulation? It's a tricky one. I wouldn't say it's simulation. I mean, I might be wrong, but I don't think it's a simulation. I think, if anything, I would go along with, like I did with one of the videos, I would go along with the fact that someone somewhere created, like we've got the Hadron Collider now, someone somewhere created a universe by banging atoms together or whatever, and we are in that universe. That's where I would go with, which would then give us a creator, an almighty creator, because hey, if we did it, and we would be the creators if we created a universe accidentally. So that's where I think, and I think, you could class that as a simulation, maybe, because there's something outside of us that's so we are just a tiny little dot really in their universe. That's where I would probably go with. Now, Linda Moulton Howe spoke to someone that apparently knew the answer to that question, and he turned around to her, and I remember her saying this. He said, "You do not want to know," which would probably mess your mind up big time. So I'm thinking it's probably along those lines. That's just my take on it. Do you think there is a Middle Earth civilization? Good question. I think, right, so separate from the Nazis that broke off during the war and went to Antarctica, so we'll put that to one side. Antarctica was said by Admiral Byrd to have had grass there. So, and he did say there was an inner area to get to it. So that's one side of it. Then you've got the other side where you've got people like, and I can't remember his name because I'm watching the clock now, sorry. But there's people out there that say that they, Emery Smith, that's his name, who say that he travels into the inner earth to catalogue plants and things like that. He's not said there's a civilization, although on another video I did hear him say something about aliens down there or creatures, whereas the other interview didn't, so I'm now wary on him. Then there's other people that I've heard in the past saying that they've came across researchers that went to the inner earth and met these indigenous people in there, and they welcomed him, and there's sort of like dinosaur type creatures, not man-eating ones, but prehistoric creatures, shall we say, and this species that's living there, that they make music all day long, they're happy, that so there's different stories out there basically. So what I think is, because then you've got also the reptilians that supposedly broke off from the dinosaurs and lived under earth and are still there, but can fly ships. So I think there's too many variations out there that I've heard to say one thing for sure. I'm sure there's gaps in the earth, absolutely. huge cavernous thick places that life could probably exist and probably does, but sentient life, like creatures that like us that know what's going on, I don't know. There's just too many things out there that confuses the water. Ultimate has wrote, I'm an artist, but no one in my family is. I have a natural talent. Where did that come from? Can't say for sure, but as I mentioned with the reincarnation side of things, there's so many stories out there of someone dying and then coming back to life, and then they can paint or they can play piano, things that they couldn't literally do before, but they can now suddenly do. So whether or not that's something that your previous incarnation or a previous incarnation did, it's possible. You could have been, a famous painter. I don't know. I don't know whether it's an innate ability or whether it's handed down. It's a good question. I don't know. If you said you'd had a near-death experience and can now paint, then I would say, yeah, that's logic. But you could just be very talented. I can't paint to save my life. How do you explain my talent? Sorry, just caught up with the thing. I can't really. It could be one of those two things. Just natural. Could possibly be from a previous life. Dread has wrote, Do you want you to make sure you remove the power? Do you want you to make sure you remove the power? Sorry, not sure what that means. Thoughts on time travel? Ultimate's asked. Yeah, they're probably doing it. The military's been doing it. I've heard enough to kind of satisfy myself that they've been doing it for a long time. Still wary on some of the stories out there. Project Pegasus possibly happened, but then you've got some people that sort of confuse things with that. But if the military can do it, they'll do it. They would have done it. So, you've got people that can do remote viewing that can go back in time. So if they can do remote view back in time, then with technology you probably go back in time. So I do think that someone's made time travel, but it's not us, not the normal people. Is there a way to find out what about time travel? If that's what you're talking about. Well, there was some talk about people that was trying to create it, such as that John Hutchinson. But if anyone ever got close to it and they sort of let the word out, then I think they'll end up either not with us anymore or they'll be recruited by the military. So for civilian use, time travel, I don't think we'll ever get that. People would just be bumped off. There's enough whistleblowers out there. You have to listen to them all, because if you listen to just one talking about time travel, then you'll say, that was a bit sketchy. So you need to listen to them all to hear whether or not, and make up your own mind whether or not you think it's real. But I certainly think they've found a way. Sorry. I've got 1 minute left. Sorry, I came here at 1:45. Sorry, and I've just seen a couple of messages now. I've been a while since I've seen you popped up on my feed, but hey, keep up with the work. Yeah, sorry. I think I've been shadow banned in some ways. Lots of people saying that they can't see my posts popping up when they should. So I apologise for that. The Mudford theory, please. I am out of time. You're going to hate me for that. I always try and get through to questions, but I'm now out of time. So thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I didn't bore you too much. I'll stick this on YouTube at some point if you came in late. And all the other videos and live chats are pretty much on YouTube as well. Subscribe to YouTube just in case this one gets pulled off. And if you haven't already watched all my other videos, go back, enjoy them, and thank you very much for some excellent questions again today. Thank you very much. Talk to you all soon. Bye.